Councillors, officers and members of the public, welcome to the 12th of June 2024 special meeting of Council. I will now open the meeting with the first item of this evening's agenda, the reading of the prayer. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Moorabool. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen. I will now read the Acknowledgement of Country. I acknowledge traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. Item 3 and 4, present and apologies. We have all councillors in attendance with Councillor Ward online. Item 5, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to declare tonight? Nope. Thank you. Item 6, presentations and deputations. There are 3 speakers to an item registered to speak at this evening's meeting. They will each be called upon to address council when the relevant item is being considered. Item 7, councillors, we will now move on to customer and corporate services reports. Item 7.1, consideration of submissions, draft council plan 2021 to 2025, 2024 update. There are no registered speakers to this item. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Dudzik, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Do I have any dissent? All those in favour? Carried. The next report is item 7.2, consideration of submissions for the proposed 2024-2025 annual budget. There are 3 registered speakers to this item. Speakers will each have 3 minutes to address council, after which councillors may ask clarifying questions. I will firstly ask Jacob White, who is online from the Wallace Recreation Reserve Committee of Management. Evening, Jacob. Jacob, can you hear me? I'll just wait a second. Evening, Jacob. It's just connecting. It's still connecting. It's sort of going on and off. Evening, Jacob. Can you hear me?
Wave at him.
Wave at him. Jacob, can you hear me? Oh, you've just muted yourself, Jacob. There we go. All right, we're nearly there, Jacob. You can hear me, but oh.
Apologies.
There we go.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay, Jacob, you have 3 minutes to address council, and then after that, councillors will have time to ask questions if they may. Okay?
No worries. Thank you. My name's Jacob White. I'm on the committee at both the Wallace Recreation Reserve and Springbank Football Netball Club. Thanks for the opportunity today, and also to Tom Sullivan for his guidance and assistance throughout the process of our recently completed master plan. The Wallace Recreation Reserve Committee of Management and Springbank Football Netball Club as the primary user of the facility, along with the wider Springbank and Wallace community, would like to encourage council to give strong consideration to funding the proposed oval redevelopment as outlined in the business case submitted. This is the highest priority item on our recently completed master plan to create a more sustainable and safer playing surface that is fit for purpose. This is a key community and council asset. Throughout the Central Highlands Football League and wider community, our oval currently has a reputation for potentially the worst within the league during the winter months, consistently relocating trainings or even cancelling them due to weather to preserve the oval for game day has both social and financial impacts which are detrimental to the club and also the health and wellbeing of the individuals. Health and wellbeing, particularly after COVID, is a priority. We are all well aware of the positive impact social connections, community and physical activity provides. Player welfare, retention and recruiting is being jeopardised, and serious concern is growing to the long-term sustainability of the club, particularly when neighbouring clubs have top-tier facilities and playing surfaces. I'd like to make note of the comments from the Central Highlands Football League administration outlined on page 6 of the business case, highlighting the fact that wherever on-field facilities or venue have been upgraded, the level of participation at the club increases significantly. I'd also like to mention an article published in the Weekly Times last week regarding equal opportunity, particularly for females and women's football. The lack of fair access to resources and being at odds with structural issues dodging the sport. A coach saying she wants nothing more than to see her players be able to simply pull on a pair of boots and play good football. She doesn't want them to know the battles behind closed doors for them to do so. Recent research showed an increase in the number of women playing AFL by about 800%, but only 35% of venues have female-friendly change rooms, and sporting facilities in general are not being kept up with female participation. Our Oval, in its current format, we can't even provide that opportunity for participation with the increased usage of the facility. We believe this is a perfect opportunity for the Maroubra Shire Council to take this investment and create an asset for all to utilise for years to come. As outlined in the business case, if funding was received, the works would be completed by the end of 2024, meaning the Oval would be on a showpiece in the 100th year of the Springbank Football Netball Club, highlighting what is achievable when local governments and community groups work together for the benefit of all. Making this even more lucrative is utilising a proven local contractor who has recently completed the Bungaree Oval upgrade, and the financial contributions from the Wallace Recreation Reserve, Springbank Football Club and Ballina District Bendigo Bank have pledged. We feel as though, as the Committee of Management, user groups and wider community have done their bit, and now hope Council can do theirs to help secure the funding and see this project come to fruition.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.
Councillors, is there any questions for Jacob? Yes, Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks. I've got two questions. One, when's the next round of funding for Ovals? Is it in this year or is it next year? So that's a question to officers. And the second question is that I'm led to believe that Springbank funded their own master plan, which is quite unusual in consideration that most of the clubs have been supported in financially to achieve the same goal. So that question is to the Speaker. Thank you.
So the first one was to officers, second one was to the Speaker?
Yes. Okay,
so we'll do Mr CEO.
Through the Chair, I'll have to defer to Lee. The next round of funding, just so councillors are aware, is the funding streams are changing as well. So we are looking at what was the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Programme. There's a potential change to that funding stream. So if you look at some of our other projects, we're no longer able to access the Growing Suburbs Fund, which was a fund that was used for some of our earlier projects. And it looks as if some constraints are going to be placed around the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Programme, which was another source we were able to use for well, in particular, Bungaree. So the funding streams are beginning to get tighter, but I'll find out of Lee when the SRV funding is next available.
Thank you. Through the Chair, typically the larger funding stream through SRV opens up at the end of each calendar year. So we would be working to that time frame, as that's been the time frame in the past.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. Councillor Tatchell, you had another question in regards to the master plan. Mr White, are you able to answer that question in regards to the master plan?
Yes, that was self-funded and initiated by the Committee of Management from the Recreation Reserve.
Thank you. Yes, councillor Tatchell, you had another one?
Could I have a supplementary on that
Yep.
then? In terms of our capital works budget, which is coming up very shortly, in percentage terms, what would that application do in terms of the funding stream?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'll have to check exactly. I believe this project is looking for around $700,000. I would have to check what the SRV, that would be a major within the SRV. So the SRV has different categories. So that would be a major application. Then, so they have different categories within SRV.
Thank you.
Councillor Ward, you had a question.
I do have a question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I also wanted to take my time to commend Jacob. I've spoken to Jacob since receiving a copy of the master plan, which, as Councillor Tatchell pointed out, was self-funded. And I've been very impressed by the initiative of the community out there and the Wallace Recreation Reserve Committee of Management and also the Springbank Football Netball Club. So I commend them on doing that. Not many clubs have the capacity to do what they've done, and it just shows that the community is behind it. I'd also like to mention that, Jacob rightly pointed out that having a suitable oval does impact the sustainability of clubs. And, what was an acceptable oval 20 years ago is no longer an acceptable oval because people are quite discerning now and they do have choice. And they can come and play in Ballarat on wonderful ovals, or they can go and play in Melton on wonderful ovals. And if Mirable's ovals are not considered fit for purpose, people will leave them. It increases the capacity as well. If the oval is clay-based and it rains and that becomes muddy, it will sit there for 2 weeks and all of a sudden it's closed, or we might get 2 hours training in. Whereas the ovals that have gone through the improvements, they can be used every night of the week for training, and they can handle loads of up to 20 to 30 hours per week. My question...
Yes, Councillor Ward, are you able to get to the question?
I am, thank you.
Thank you.
Over the last 2 years, Jacob, have you found that players have left your club to play at venues with better facilities, and do you think that is impacting your ability to recruit and retain players?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for the Speaker? No. Thank you, Mr White. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to our second speaker for the night, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Mr Peter I can't hear this. Peter Lelevier. No, that's not. Anyway.
Call him Phantom.
Thank you, Peter.
We'll just call it Peter.
We'll just call him Peter. Sorry, Peter.
Don't feel on your own about butchering my name. It's happening since I could talk.
Peter, if I could just ask you to press the button there in front of you. You will have 3 minutes to present to councillors, and after that they may ask you some questions.
Good afternoon. Peter Leleve's my name, and I'm Vice President of the Ballarat Cricket Association. And on behalf of the Cricket Association, thanks for the opportunity to submit initially a budget submission, and secondly, which I'll take as read, and secondly, the opportunity to follow up with a brief verbal supporting comments tonight. Who would have thought 30 or 40 years ago that the Western Corridor of Victoria would have expanded so much in terms of population, housing and industry, and it has. By Western Corridor I mean Moorabool, Ballarat and Geelong. Community sports, including cricket, have expanded broadly in line with this growth, with over 2,200 players participating each week in the major summer sport of cricket. Moorabool-based cricket clubs of Darley and Bacchus Marsh have grown from small numbers, playing on synthetic-based pitches, to large clubs now offering participation opportunities to many sections of the community. And the two most important sections of the community, we believe, is the young children up to the age of 11 and diversity and inclusion. The BCA conduct Woolworths Blasters introductory programs for over 350 kids in the 5 to 7-year-old bracket and field 35 boys and girls teams in the under-11s. A total of 700 kids each year coming into community sport of cricket and to play sport and contribute to their health. learning critical life skills, build resilience and confidence, improve connectivity and inclusion, and sport brings positiveness and calmness into kids' lives. The other most important area is the diversity, and cricket's a wonderful sport with the ability to support and encourage participation regardless of age, ability, race or gender. Girls and women's cricket has increased by 2.5 times in the last 3 years, including 9 senior teams and 6 under-11 teams. From a diversity perspective, 9% of the playing participants in the Ballarat Cricket Association were born overseas. This has doubled in the last 3 years. 17% of the participants had a parent or guardian born overseas. 2% of the participants identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders, and 3% of our participants identify as having a disability, and 2 clubs have dedicated all abilities teams. The BCA now field a team in each of the over 50s and over 60s veterans competitions, which allows me to continue to play. Within community cricket comes a community expectation of turf cricket to provide better playing conditions for aspiring juniors, men's and women's competition and a pathway for players to higher levels. The municipalities of Ballarat and Geelong and Moorabool have come at turf cricket facilities from vastly different backgrounds. Geelong and Ballarat have played turf cricket since the Gold Rush days, with England playing in Ballarat in the 1870s. Over these times, municipalities have migrated from high-cost council-maintained wickets and capital equipment to clubs and association management. And it's been done very efficiently by leveraging the contribution of volunteers by a small financial support. This is supported by strict governance controls by the Ballarat Cricket Association. Moorabool Shire clubs have achieved their turf playing facilities from a much different background, with clubs funding the purchase and ongoing maintenance of capital equipment, which is in the range of $50,000 per club. And in Darley's case, they actually did the earthworks and the soil acquisition from Casterton to establish a turf wicket 20 years ago. The BCA is not, on behalf of the clubs, is not asking council to employ a curator to prepare the wickets at a likely cost of about $100,000 a year. What we're asking is for the clubs to get a modest amount of $17,000 in total, similar to Ballarat and Geelong, and to leverage the efforts of volunteers to prepare the turf wickets and purchase and maintain the capital equipment. Thank you. Happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Peter. Councillors, do we have any questions? No. Oh, sorry. Councillor Dudzik and then Councillor Ward.
My question is for officers. This is a fairly new proposal. We've never been asked for this type of funding before. Do we do that kind of funding for any other associations? Because I thought that us contributing to the actual sporting grounds was our contribution. This seems very unusual. Do we fund other associations, and why would we do this?
Ms McCallum?
Through the chair, we're not currently funding other sports clubs to the value of this. What does occur is that sport clubs are provided with facilities at a discounted rate, which means that those overhead costs are not great, and therefore any fundraising, etc., can be used to support the club through the upkeep, etc. But no, we do not currently provide.
Councillor Ward, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I suppose it's related to what I asked Jacob earlier. Thank you for your presentation, Peter. 20 years ago, again, turf wicket was played in first and second grade on a Saturday afternoon. Now, with the growth of female cricket, the growth of junior cricket and all abilities cricket, the turf wickets, I understand, are getting used far more often, Saturdays, Sundays and nights. Can you talk about the growing need to actually have a turf wicket table? Because in the past, you might have had 4 wickets on a table, now you might have 5 or 6 because of that need. And because I suppose I want an understanding of the expectations of the wicket availability compared to 20 years ago.
Thanks, Councillor Ward. Cricket currently played across the BCA 6 days out of 7. The only night that's not played, cricket's not played, is Thursday nights. So the women play on Sundays and are more often than not on turf. There's men's cricket on Saturday on turf, and where possible we play junior competitions on turf as well. In addition to that, last year the BCA ran the Cricket Australia under-17 national titles, which we estimate that brought into Ballarat region 550,000 of economic benefit. We'd like to involve the Moorabool clubs in that as well, and bringing the turf wickets to a standard that we could offer that would be part of that proposal.
Councillor Ward, did you have another question?
Yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. Subsequent. So the increased need to have turf wicket available puts increased stress on clubs and, on volunteers to have those wickets available. So instead of preparing 1 wicket a week, you might need to prepare 3 wickets a week. So would it be fair to say that clubs are finding it very difficult to attract and retain suitably qualified volunteers, and how many have to employ a volunteer to manage their wicket table?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And all of the clubs that do this currently in Ballarat, with the same modest contribution from the City of Ballarat, they employ high-level skilled curators to oversee what the volunteers do. And again, that leverages, if you costed out the volunteers' time in preparing 2 to 3 wickets a week, you would come up with a scary number. So a small amount per annum, and I should talk about the governance that we put behind this. The BCA administer the funds, make the clubs put the money into a separate bank account, and it quits back to us that it was only used for turf wicket preparation and associated costs. So it doesn't just go into club funds that could be used for who knows what. And we would manage the governance side of the funds if council saw fit to provide those on an annual basis.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Ward, you had one more?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Peter, you mentioned the economic benefits for Moorabool. I've noticed as a cricket lover, I've gone to Darley Park and I've seen the BCA play representative cricket there. I've also seen the Central Highlands region, so Victoria's split into 6 regions, and the State Pathway Program play representative games there. Would it be fair to say that obviously those go for 8 hours a day, people come and watch the cricket are spending money locally? Would it be fair to say if the racecourse comes online that the BCA would look at playing more representative programs down in Moorabool, so there is an increase in economic benefit?
Correct. All clubs are required to provide wickets for pathways and representative cricket, whether that's under 15 Barwon Central Highlands competition, under 13, under 15, under 17 junior country weeks. Any representative cricket is spread evenly between each of the clubs that have got turf wickets, so that they're making a contribution to the game going forward. And certainly Darley have done that in the past, and it would be an expectation with the racecourse facility that Bacchus Marsh would do the same this year.
Yep.
Thank you, Peter.
One last one, Ellie, if I may.
Yes, yep.
Peter, you've seen clubs that have had the reduced capacity to prepare and maintain suitable wickets. And if you get a dodgy wicket, all of a sudden you get an unexpected bounce, it becomes a safety issue. Have you noticed that the clubs that don't have the financial resources and are getting less support, and I'll mention that there is a club outside the City of Ballarat that's not in Moorabool that may have a dodgy, occasionally less than perfect wicket, it affects their ability to, again, going back to what Jacob said to Springbank and Wallace, to attract and retain players, because players will go and play somewhere where they've got a safe wicket and is professionally prepared. Absolutely,
and fortunately that club that's outside the City of Ballarat have just got a new facility being built at Sebastopol on the second oval, and that'll inject a huge amount of life back into that club, accessing the younger players of Sebastopol. They're actually called Napoleon Sebastopol, and I understand for history purposes they'll keep that name. But that'll ensure the survival of that club and more opportunities for younger players to come into the club.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rod. Councillor Berry, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for Peter. Just so I'm understanding and reading this correctly, you would like this to be an ongoing contribution?
Yes.
Are you proposing number of years, or?
Well, the existing City of Ballarat one is a 5-year agreement, which is in its 4th year. So somewhere between 3 and 5 years would be what we'd be asking for, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Is there any other questions? Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks. Did you say 800% participation rate improvement, or?
No, it said 2.5 times in the women's and female cricket, increase in participation in the last 3 years.
And how many of these turf setups have we got in Mirrabul?
2.
Two. So based on the growth, because I'm always confused about turfs, because there was a period where they were just ripped out of ovals, which, you know, was blasphemy really, of course, no end of problems, and now we're trying to put them back. But if you've got growth happening at one end, and now we're bringing the participation is a better spread now. Are we playing catch up here? Are we that? How many would it take? How many turf wickets would, if we had a goal, how many turf wickets would it take to keep up with the demand in Mirrabul?
Because you play home and away, I would suggest you'd be looking maybe at another turf in another 5 to 10 years. Because at the moment, with Bacchus Marsh coming online, we gave Bacchus Marsh a year's grace of not having a turf wicket and still come into the competition. We have enough turf wickets at the moment to field first and seconds on turf most weeks. The outliers being Baland, Dunstown and a few others who have good quality synthetic ovals. But yes, we've grown the number of turf wickets in Ballarat from probably 6 to about 12 in the last 15 years. And there was a fair bit of catch up on that, and a tremendous amount of work from the clubs to actually install turf wickets that we then evened up the competition by spreading the council effort across the clubs that did their own work and the clubs that had council wickets. So we have a much fairer competition as part of that growth as well.
Yes, Councillor Tatchell.
So on that base, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in technology in terms of ovals, especially we've seen that in football where, you know, the ovals that were built 30 years ago are completely different to how they're built today. And there was always that transitional period from football to cricket where obviously the two genres needed to have a distinct change in format.
Yes.
And how's that technology affecting turf wickets in terms of that changeover period?
There's a difference. I'd say there's a better relationship between football and cricket, which has enabled the turf wickets to be used more. In the past, turf wickets weren't touched until football season finished, including finals and training, which meant in some years Ballarat didn't start playing turf cricket until middle of November. On the same token, the football clubs didn't train as much as they do now, starting training in October and November each year. So the relationship, the shared usage of the facilities has never been better. So the turf wickets can get prepared in around about, if ground's not used for finals, around about August, and they're used much earlier into the season, and then the football clubs get to use the quality outfields for their pre-season training when cricket's not using them during the week. So it's not so much a technology, it's a much better community spirit to share the high-quality facilities that are now available so that they get used 5 days a week, a lot of times, if you're allowed for football and cricket training during the summer months. And that was a distinct change in football's approach to sharing facilities and supported by cricket.
Just ask one more on that, just
Yes.
of interest. I was talking to someone from the cricket club at Mount Clear, and they
I've got a conflict of interest here. My son is captain of Mount Clear, but keep going.
I actually knew that. I wasn't going to put you in the deep end. But it was interesting that I was at a discussion out there and just came out of the blue, and they talked about the effect of climate change on the transitional period where you convert to a turf wicket. And I wonder if that's real. Does climate change actually affect the wicket?
Well, you'd wonder where climate change has been the last couple of years. By goodness, the springs have been wet. But I've played in a season in 1982 or thereabouts where we played from the very first game of the season because it was a drought and the wickets were ready. But I've also played in seasons where it didn't start till November for the opposite reason.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ward, did you still have another question?
Oh, I did, Madam Mayor, thank you. Peter mentioned that Bacchus Marsh had joined the BCA 12 months ago, and they were given 12 months grace from having a turf wicket, because it is a requirement to have a turf wicket for first and second grade. This question is for Lee, if I may, and it's two questions. Will the turf wicket table at the racecourse be ready for the 24-25 season?
Maybe Mr. Jeffrey.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the cooch has gone down on the main oval, so we'd probably need some really warm spring for that cooch to spread properly. So at this stage, probably not at the start of the season, I would say that it'd be ready, but hopefully during the season it would come online.
Thank you. So, Madam Mayor, my concern with this is putting the table in, 4 or 5 wickets is...
Sorry, Councillor Ward, are you asking another question?
I am.
Okay.
I am at Phil and
Phil?
council
Right.
and council officers.
Yes.
So putting the wicket in is one significant expense, but then you actually have the expense of buying a roller, having a shed to store the roller in and the covers and the mesh and a trolley to carry the huge weight of the covers out. Have council got an arrangement with the Bacchus Marsh Cricket Club, or are we planning to invest further funds into those other requirements that go with having a turf wicket table?
Ms McCallum.
Through the chair, that's not the intention, no. In terms of the club, are you referring to?
Well, club or council, because once the big wicket becomes available for use, the club will need to roll it, the club will need to store the roller, they'll need to put covers on it when it rains, and they'll need a trolley to get the covers in and out. So, yeah, what is our plans or council, the club's plans for that?
Mr. CEO.
I'll have to take that on notice, because our discussions with the club was going to manage that turf wicket, but I can't say categorically that's going to be the case. But when the club asked for that turf wicket, that was part and parcel of what was arranged at that moment in time. But I'm happy to come back to you on the exact details on that, because the turf wicket at that location was a request of the club.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Is there any other questions for Peter?
Could I make a comment to that?
I'm sorry, you can't.
Okay, that's all right.
Is there any other questions? No. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
I can give you the answer. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to our last speaker tonight, Mr. Stephen Vendetti-Taylor. Stephen, you can take your seat, and when you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and then, of course, as you can see, councillors may ask you questions, and if you just press the button. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
How are we all?
Very good.
Firstly, I'd like to say that all things that I speak about tonight, I'm more than welcome for any of you to come and actually have a look at what I'm talking about. First thing that we'll speak about is with the Capital Works program, the $60 or $70 million that you're going to spend this year. To be completely honest, you need to maintain what you've already done. If you go through Bacchus Marsh Billing Roads, Gilmore's Road, the roundabout, if you go through the $50 million upgrade, Glenmore's Road, Geelong Bacchus Marsh Road, Parwa and Exford Road and Geelong Bacchus Marsh, and actually have a look at what they actually look like at the moment, and the wear and tear and the damage that's going on with them is not acceptable. Especially the first one, it's $1.35 million. So firstly, with your $60 or $70 million, you need to invest more money into maintenance around Bacchus Marsh. Bacchus Marsh is crying out for a bypass. You can't keep smashing trucks through the middle of the road. You've got major issues with potholes, you've got major issues with footpaths and everything else that goes with it. Something needs to change, something needs to give. We go back into McCormack's Road where I live. Unfortunately, I'm probably the most unluckiest guy in Australia. I flood, I've got a bus stop, I've got an invasion of privacy house on one side as well. There needs to be 2 drains installed at McCormack's Road to avoid the flooding. Obviously, a lot of people are ringing up council and saying, we're being flooded, the council's passing it off to the developer's passing it back. We get flooded. Our houses are not there for irrigation. It needs to run off onto the golf course, and it needs to be fixed. We look at Hillfield Estate and we look at the damage to footpaths and everything else like that. We talk about probably 4 to 6 to 8 extra people doing maintenance going through Bacchus Marsh You need to backfill the concrete, because what you're doing is you're causing tens of millions of dollars damage because there's no soil holding in together. People run trucks and cars and everything over it, and it continues to get damaged. We talk about down Stonehill. We talk about McCormack's Road. We talk about going down. The road's been damaged. The roundabouts are damaged from all the impact of what's happened at Stonehill. Who's going to fix that? Are the people that are damaging it going to come in 5 years' time and then get another $20 million for fixing it? There needs to be a full audit into the large jobs over the last 5 to 10 years, because it's not acceptable. You go into the new estate that's being built at Hallett's Way and Holt's Lane. I don't know what that retaining wall is, but all of a sudden we're in 2024. Not adequate drainage. There's not adequate drainage in McCormack's Road. At the end of the day, you're relying on runoff. We're in 2024. There's major issues with Stonehill. When I spoke to you on the phone as well, you're perfectly aware of it, but no one ever hears anything about it, and it's never fixed. We talk about the bus route. At the end of the day, it needs to be fixed. 3 bus stops can go on the other side of the road, and the bus stop can go the opposite way, which impacts no one. The 3 bus stops can start at the one at the bottom of McCormack's Road, one can go in the middle, and one can go at the top on the other side. What's been done out the front of my house is nothing short of a disgrace. You look at going through. When I come in, I drove here. That new road going from Ingerston Road to Ballan at the back here, it's damaged after 1 week, and there's potholes. There's not proper irrigation. It hasn't been laid properly, and that's millions of dollars. And in your funds of $60, $70 million, what is that? You had a guy out there today fixing the drainage. That should have all been fixed already. You know, you go through and you have a look. As I say, the car park at Mattingley Park. Mattingley Park car park could fit 50 or 60 cars. And now you've done a single row of bus stops. Now, come on, people. The thing is with it, and my dealing with council and everything that goes with it, you have to consult people in what you're doing. Basically, what happened with the bus stop, and I can show you, I've got all the information here, I've got photos, I can prove whatever I say. On the 22nd of the 11th, a council member and people were at my house, and you went through it and you approved it, council approved it, written letter, no consultation. You did the works out the front of my house to extend it out. Everything has been dishonest. In the council offices, when I'm speaking to the lady and the Indian guy that works there, I've been belittled and shown absolutely no respect.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
But let me just finish if I can. Sorry, I've only got a couple more things.
No, sorry. I've let you go a little bit long. I'll let everyone go a little bit longer than 3 minutes.
As I say,
so unfortunately, your time has run out, Mr. Vendetti Taylor. So I will open the floor to questions for councillors. Does any of the councillors have any questions? Yes, Councillor Edwards.
Is council aware of the flooding in McCormack's Road, and is there something happening about that?
Mr. Jeffrey?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of the specific issue on McCormack's Road, so I would have to research that and then follow up.
Does anyone else have any questions? Councillor Dudzik.
Mine, through the Mayor, is a question for officers. I know in the past week it's been raised with me about McCormack's Road and damage by trucks, and a member of the community has asked for something to be done about the trucks using the road and road trains. How can we get some? I know that there are plans for someone to meet with that member of the community, although it's not this gentleman. What can actually be done to reduce the trucks and also the speed of traffic in McCormack's Road, because it is dangerous and affecting some of the residents there?
It's to finish.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So recently there was an accident on the freeway, and unfortunately, not through council, the majority of the freeway traffic ended up going down Ingliston Road and McCormack's Road, including heavy vehicles, and the road was never built for that, and the Speaker spoke about potholes in the new road we built. It wasn't built for that level of traffic to go down it. So we've been having discussions with Department of Transport and Planning in the last couple of weeks around appropriate detour routes when the freeway is closed, because there is a load-limited bridge at the top of McCormack's Road as well. So those discussions are ongoing to put in appropriate detour routes. Now, if there's legally loaded trucks accessing construction sites on McCormack Road, then they can do that legally, so it's not something that we can control, but where they go up over the railway line is something that...
it's a whole centre of town.
Mr Vendetti-Taylor, I will have to ask you to be quiet, please.
No worries.
Something that we are discussing with DTP.
Thank you, Mr Jeffrey. Is there any other questions from councillors? Councillor Tatchell.
I'm going to take a more helicopter view of this rather than individualising roads, and I think we've had a problem over a number of years where we have compounding growth. And I noted in the media a couple of weeks ago that we were in the 5.5% of growth. And obviously we have an issue across the Shire with 2,100 square kilometres and probably 1,800 kilometres of goat track, that's hard to maintain at the best of times. And whilst I accept the argument in terms of the problem, I think we have a much larger problem than that, and that's what this is about tonight, is that when we look at the feedback from the community in terms of the council plan and where we spend our money, we also have to acknowledge, are we keeping up in percentage terms with the type of capital works it would take to match our growth? And when you consider the growth out of Bacchus Marsh, as you come up that hill in particular, I mean, you have to question whether there's adequate funding in terms to not just keep up, but are we going backwards in terms of the damage that's done across the Shire because of the extra works, the extra trucks that are coming in for these projects and the expansion of the Shire from an urban base. And I think we've had this discussion over 12 years where we've said, well, this was the benchmark in terms of how much the funding should be in order to maintain the status quo. And we continually come up with the same problem, that we're actually being retarded continually because we're fighting a never-ending battle against growth. The other requirements of Shire where your budget is being forced into other areas, and quite rightly so. The Speaker spoke about the potholes and the limited amount of work that's being done in terms of the big picture. So I want to stick to the helicopter point. So my question is that whilst we continue to increase marginally where our capital works money goes, there's a time we had a serious discussion about how we direct that money with a long-term view of how we can actually start to make some ground up from where we were. Because I think, in my view, that I think we've gone backwards over 12 years in terms of where we sit, in not just McCormack's Road, but across the Shire, because of the breadth of it. I know there was an argument that we were all receiving the same amount of funding, and yet there were some shires had 50 kilometres of road, but we're getting the same amount that we were. And then we can't continually go back to the honeypot and say, well, the ratepayers should pay for this. So the pizza only has so many slices. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board and say, in order for us to maintain the situation we're in comparison to our compounding growth, what is that real number, and where do we need to be to play catch up to make sure that we don't end up in this situation again well after I'm gone and Taven Brothers come to pick me up. But there'll be people sitting here and there'll be people living in those areas, and at 5.5% compounding, there'll be a lot more people sitting in those chairs saying, my road's undrivable or my road's dangerous. The discussion with Vic Roads in terms of whenever there's an incident on the Western Highway, we tend to use these roads, the domestic roads really, that we're running road trains and B-doubles on that absolutely have no place in these places, but they're continually on. Yes, so...
Can I answer what he's saying?
No, I'm sorry.
So my question is that, and I think this, is it time that we went back to our engineering department and, because I know every year when budget comes, everyone's fighting for their piece of the pizza. That maybe we go back to the practicalities of this and say, what do we really need to make this thing work? And I know David and I have had a number of conversations just in particular about that corner down the bottom where, geez, there's been some growth there in the last 10 years and we have these narrow-gutted little roads that are going to be, falling apart. We've got roundabouts that are just absolutely outrageous. Whether you get 3 or 4 years out of them, and we're pouring a lot of money into stuff that we didn't build. So that's my question. I think we're a mile behind, to be honest, but I think it's time that engineering and us as a council sat down and said, what do we really need to do? Because I think this question is going to come up a lot more. So that's my question, Madam Mayor.
Who would you? Mr Jeffrey? Mr Jeffrey? That was a question to you.
I don't necessarily think Phil can answer that question. That's a philosophical question, and I think it's for the councillors themselves to answer that question. The officers present a budget which has a forward plan, which is based on condition assessments on our road network. Officers will then allocate the resources, and then that budget is taken to council, and council will decide whether to approve that budget or not. So it's part of the process that you are currently going through.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Is there any other questions? No? Thank you, Mr Vendetti-Taylor. Okay, so, councillors, you have a recommendation in your papers in regards to consideration of submissions to the proposed 2024-2025 annual budget. Do I have a councillor to move the recommendation? Councillor Tatchell?
I won't move another question.
You have a question?
The speakers are finished, so...
Sorry?
The speakers are finished, so I just have a question.
Yes.
Because we've had 3 speakers come in with items that have been put on the agenda. My question is that we have a priority list that has been in place for a number of years, and we continually look at that and it's continually reworked. My question is, when these come in as responses, does it affect the priority list? And because that concerns me that we might get things that get duck shoved because of the priority that's today, when we have priorities that have been there for a number of years. So how do we manage that? That's my question.
Mr CEO.
Through the chair. I suppose the answer to that question is yes, the priority list does exist, and these submissions are there, and I suppose that's for a decision for council as the elected members as to where these fit into that. But the officers have done condition assessments and they have their asset management plans, but ultimately that's a decision for the elected members, which I think the budget meeting is on the 26th. I'm looking over here to make sure that is the case, the 26th of June, and that's where probably the final decisions. This is really just receiving the submissions, as it were.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Any other questions, or do I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Dudzik.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Do I have any dissent? All those in favour? Carried. Item 8, any other business? Councillors, I'll go around the room and ask if there is any business to be considered at this meeting. Councillor Sullivan.
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Ward.
Apologies, no, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, no business here.
Councillor Berry.
No other business, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Dudzik.
No other business. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Just one item, Madam Mayor. It just request that we put out some communication in relation to the car park opposite the high school in Grant Street there, so people are aware that the road is being widening as part of the roundabout, because people are trying to understand why we've narrowed that strip in there. It's actually because Vic Roads is doing that and people aren't aware, so there's a lot of confusion in the community. Would that be possible?
No worries.
Through the chair, yes, we'll action that tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay. Item 9. Thank you, councillors, officers and members of the public for attending this evening's meeting. I will now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.